All right, Alan Moore, you're joining us again. As promised earlier, or pre-World Cup, that we'd have you on one more time. So we're going to talk maybe more about the football side of things, because when we last spoke, obviously the expectation was Russia were probably going to struggle maybe to get out of the group. If they did get out of that, they'd be going home at the last 16 stage. But they went all the way to the quarterfinals, and it was a huge, huge achievement. Very broad question, but why did Russia do so well?
I mean, if you believe some of the German media, Raf, or even some of the British media, or English media, I should say, is that it was something that they were on. But I think it's more that it wasn't they were underestimated. I think it was, well, I didn't underestimate them. I just thought they were pretty poor. I mean, when I was on with you last time, I just thought they were the worst coach and worst bunch of players ever to play in the World Cup for Russia. I still stand by that, no matter what. So I'll do a dumpy on it. But I think it's that they had a pretty good draw. I mean, I was speaking with some of the Saudi camp. I mean, all their players were fasting for Ramadan. The same with Egypt as well. Egypt were without Mo Salah, who really shouldn't have even played. They were terrible. And I think like getting wins in those two games set them up. Spain, they were in turmoil. We know that from before the World Cup, like with the manager not even being fired right before the kickoff. So I think that Spain never had a plan B against Russia. I was commentating on that game in the stadium, and if Spain had a plan B, if they'd actually made some passes into the box instead of around the box, they would have won. So I think Russia did well to get so far as they did, but it showed that no matter how much they were running, at the end of games they were just exhausted, and they ran a lot in the first two games because they had no possession of the ball, and the same against Croatia as well. They didn't have that much of the ball, so they had to chase. But you could see that even against Spain, I think even Miguel Delaney said that after 80 minutes, the Russian players were so tired they couldn't even control the ball. So they really, really struggled. And I think we were all shocked. I was at the game as well against Spain, and it was just shocking that Spain couldn't put Russia away. But I think they've overachieved, and unfortunately, they papered over a lot of cracks that are here in Russian football. So it's kind of reduced the chance of fixing Russian football for 2022 or 2026.
Oh, wow. So you're saying kind of the fixture order, given that the teams like Saudi Arabia and Egypt obviously had issues that they had to deal with in terms of having to, deal with Ramadan for some of the players who were doing that. So the fixture order pretty much worked in the order of Russia.
For sure, yeah. I think that was it. If you look at the groups, I mean, it wasn't exactly a group of death as well. On paper, it was a tough enough group, but Ramadan did come into play because we were told that the players weren't fasting or breaking the fast. But as it turned out, even at the time, it was known in Russia that they were fasting and so on. So it did play a big role in it, because you can see the players, especially from Saudi Arabia, were weak. When it came to the end of the group, when they were able to eat during the day and prepare properly, they played a lot better. Saudi against Russia were unbelievably good on the ball, but had no strength to finish it off, and Russia ended up running away with it in the end. I mean, it was at the last few minutes of the game when Russia just got easy, soft goals. And of course, they were fresh. They were motivated, and playing in front of 78,000 and 11 people in Luzhniki was a huge factor as well.
Yeah, and the other thing, just very early in that Saudi Arabia game, so Denis Cheryshev, who wasn't starting at that point, comes on for Alan Jagoev, and he went on. He obviously scored in the quarter-final match against Croatia, a wonderful goal, and actually all his goals were pretty impressive. That kind of worked out in their favour as well.
Very much. I mean, when Jagoev went off, and we were looking to see, because straight away we called it as though his hamstring went, and he's had issues with that this season already. So when we saw him get an injury, we thought, this could be bad. And then we saw Cheryshev, because we thought, stick on Juba, stick on another forward, because we can get after this lot. It was strange to Cheryshev because he's been out of form and wasn't match fit, and it showed he wasn't match fit, but still, his touch on the ball, his composure on the ball, the 2 goals he scored against Saudi Arabia were absolutely magnificent. And he's not a great goal scorer, but he's shown that he's a scorer of great goals.
Yeah, certainly. And has the relationship now between the media and the Russian team changed somewhat? Because obviously there was criticism beforehand, and it wasn't just from our media over here, but from within the country as well. Has that improved, or what's the situation now?
Very, very quickly it changed around. They started, liking the Russian team. Cherchesov now, well, it looks like he's going to get an extension of his contract for another 2 years, because it was a case where he was going to be kicked out. Of course, he played up to kind of the every man kind of thing when he was walking around the stadium, like pumping up the fans and waving his arms. Now the media have turned a complete 180 and fall in love with the team, whereas before they couldn't give a damn. And as we all know, the Russian public were fearful of what could happen, especially against Egypt, because Mo Salah was his form was decreasing at the end of the season for Liverpool, especially when he got injured in the Champions League final. But still, in all, he's like he's an international class striker.